Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Mind the Moments Tuesday morning mindfulness gathering brought to you by Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare. And as you all know, this is a place where we invite experienced mindfulness instructors to speak with us about what mindfulness means to them, and then also to process as a community how we can incorporate these practices into our daily lives. I'm Suzanne Rowe Palacino, and I'm delighted to be here with Jackie Johnson, certified professional coach and mindfulness instructor. Good morning, Jackie.
Good morning, Suzanne. It's so great to be with you and with everybody here.
Yeah, it's great to be here together this morning and to have this way to start our day. So what we'll do, as we usually do, is Jackie will start us off with a question for the group, share some thoughts with us, and then we'll have a guided meditation practice. And then after that, we'll have time for questions. So if you go to the bottom of your screen and just click on the chat, that will open up the discussion for you. And you can have the opportunity, if you want to click on the drop-down menu, and you can choose panelists and attendees. And then you'll see all the comments and questions coming in real time. All right then, Jackie. So what about a question for everyone this morning?
Well, I've been, as I mentioned to you, Suzanne, I've been paying a lot of attention in my life to how curiosity shows up in practice and in life. And it's been kind of a personal exploration for me over the last few years. And as I'm sure a lot of folks here know, curiosity is such an important attitude that we bring to this practice. So my question is, in just a very few words, when and in what situations are you most aware of being curious? And you might also include the qualities that that brings forward, the qualities that come to mind that you notice when you're curious. So I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, just type in the chat any feedback that you have on that.
When do you find yourself most curious?
So I have to say, I think this goes hand in hand when I'm out in nature. And I think that's when I'm feeling a little bit less distracted. Um, when I'm not anxious, someone mentions.
It's great.
Tend to be curious when I find my buttons pushed, when I'm provoked in some way.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
great.
that's
That's
good.
really applying the practice.
Yeah, totally. Walking in nature when I'm curious, is when I feel most alive in the morning. And yes, when I'm less distracted. In nature, when I'm walking in the neighborhood and free of stuff to do.
Mm,
When I respond positively to knowing what I don't know.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Sometimes in coaching, I talk about being a learner versus a knower. So that's kind of what came up for me in reading that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And when I'm not doing anything particular, not working, not cleaning the house, no task.
Yeah, so I just wonder also again about the qualities, what is that? What are the kind of qualities you notice? Um, when I'm fixing,
Fixing an instrument. I'm curious how it
great.
works. So the qualities I notice in nature, well, someone says physical sensations in my body.
Yeah, that's great.
Hmm.
Yeah, another big one for me is people watching, which is something I always feel like I could do for long stretches of time and just sit in an airport or in a crowded place when we used to be in crowded places and just notice people going by and be curious and interested and also notice what my mind is making up.
Hmm. I remember being on the train once with my kids, and we decided to look in New York, we decided to look at each person and find out what we felt was most beautiful about each person.
I love it.
which is kind of fun. Catching thoughts in general as I move through the world.
Lovely. So maybe this is a good time to move into a practice. And my invitation for this practice is to really bring those kinds of qualities into the practice. So I'll give some brief guidance at the beginning and offer some gentle reminders throughout. And feel free to let my voice be in the background if that's best for you, and to let it guide you if that's helpful. So, to start with, just check in with the body and see what the body may need in this moment. If you've already been sitting for a while, see if it could use a stretch or some movement, and find the posture that's right for you. And that might be a seated posture, but if it feels better to stand, that's perfectly fine. So just inviting the body to settle in the posture that will best support you in this practice for probably about 12 or 13 minutes. And if it feels right, allowing the eyes to close or casting the gaze downward in a gentle way that eliminates some of the peripheral distractions. And inviting in a couple of deeper than normal breaths and allowing the body to soften. Just seeing if there are any areas of tension or tightness that without any great effort, you can just release and let soften to really help create the conditions for practice. And to the degree possible, allowing awareness to drop into the body in a way that supports being able to really notice the direct experience of sensation, of breath, of tingling, of vibration, and choosing whatever anchor will best support a collectedness of attention for you in this moment. So you might begin with a focus on awareness of sound, including sounds outside, sounds in the room, the sound of my voice. No need to go looking for sound, simply resting and receiving what's already here. And shifting the awareness to settle into the natural rhythm of breath, of the body breathing. Feeling the natural rising and falling of the breath. And then, if it feels right to you, perhaps bringing the attention to awareness of breath in a more focused way. And that can be wherever you notice it most prominently. That could be at the nostrils, in the chest, around the heart space, in the belly. And if breath feels difficult, you can also choose to anchor the attention in sensation of the feet on the floor or the hands resting in contact. Whatever best supports, most easily supports that kind of collectedness of attention. What qualities might enliven a sense of interest or curiosity? Whatever's here, that kind of who knows feeling that we might bring when we're particularly curious. What if this next breath, these next sensations were new? And each time you notice the mind has wandered, it's not a problem. And just seeing what it's like to meet that moment with openness, with real interest, open heartedness, curiosity, and kindness. Softening and noticing this next breath, these next sensations in the way that you might take in the colors in a sunset or watching the waves of the ocean, looking at the night sky. In the last couple of minutes of practice, simply resting and receiving with a bit of wonder. And as we bring the practice to a close, inviting any of the qualities you want to bring forward into your day. What might you carry forward for yourself and for others? And beginning to feel a little bit of movement in the body. And if the eyes have been closed, slowly allowing some light in, allowing them to open. May our practice be of benefit to all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. I really liked the opportunity to look at your breath like a sunset or like a night sky. I thought that worked well for me.
Thanks. You know, I was thinking about a couple of the comments in the chat. Somebody said that they notice curiosity when they're not anxious. Somebody else said, I tend to be curious when I find my buttons are pushed, when I'm provoked. And I attended a webinar a couple of weeks ago with Heidi Hanna, Dr. Heidi Hanna, who's a stress expert. And I was very fascinated by a comment she made that stress and curiosity can't coexist. So I thought that was quite something to notice somebody mentioning being anxious. And Dr. Judd Brewer, who has also been on this show with Tara Healy, he was on a science episode that folks can find on the YouTube channel. But he also, his specialty is in addiction research, including anxiety. And he also brings in a lot of curiosity to his work. So I've been curious about all that and how that factors in as we do this work and what the potential is for kind of upping the curiosity in our practice and in our lives. So I'd love to hear from folks, any questions that are coming up.
Yeah, it's interesting to think that when we have a stressful situation that we, those of us that have been practicing for a little while, sometimes we'll notice what happens in our bodies when we're stressed, and that curiosity and knowing that when we look into it more, that's potentially releasing some of those feelings of those stress hormones in our body. It's kind of an interesting way to look at stress in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This exploration for me really comes of having become more aware in recent years that curiosity was not really emphasized in my growing up as something important to cultivate, and that knowing and being clever there was far more emphasis on that than being interested and curious.
Some comments here. Awareness and curiosity go hand in hand. Yeah, and when anxiety is there, there's a tendency to resist and distract. Catching this impulse opens the opportunity to increase curiosity. Simply asking what's happening physically. Yeah, I think I've heard some people in the Eastern culture mention some meditation practitioners how we in the West just tend to have that way of looking more for intellect versus
Yeah.
I've heard it discussed as intellect versus wisdom, and how wisdom brings up a lot more feelings of, I don't know, just experiences and listening, versus intellect is, like what you were talking about with your family, is knowing the answer, and
Mhm.
feeling like you're the smartest person in the room or something like that.
I love that somebody posted, "You have to be curious to be a good scientist." And she said, "My career." Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I find it fascinating when in the moment, maybe I'm going to a particular response that's maybe a likely knowing response, and it's only later that I get curious. So in other words, in the conversation, I'm busy in the conversation, and maybe after the conversation ends is when I think, "Oh, I wish I'd asked."
Hmm. Hmm.
What's the difference between curiosity and investigating something you don't know? Yeah, that's a great question. It's a great question, and what comes up for me is the difference between getting super cognitive about whatever we're curious about versus perhaps some of the other qualities that we can invite in, that we work with in our practice, like the difference between figuring something out in our heads through investigation, perhaps, versus somebody said cognitions and feelings. I was going to say a quality of open-heartedness. So I'm not going to try and have a succinct answer, but I think it's a wonderful question. And certainly not valuing one over the other, cognition over feelings, or investigating versus perhaps some different kind of curiosity. I think naturally we tend to really overvalue perhaps the cognitive, the head kind of investigation. And it's interesting to think about, what's the right balance for me?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Those of us who have to make decisions about what we feel are important things, sometimes we talk about having a gut feeling, like a physical feeling that this is the right answer, versus going on the internet and trying to find all these different answers, which could kind of confuse our decision making process.
Yeah,
So
and somebody
you're
mentioned doing a root cause analysis. Where is this coming from? Helps me reset. And it's interesting because even with that, you can think about where is this coming from, can be like a banging my head against the wall kind of exercise, or it can be an opening up that's more like dropping a pebble in and just sort of seeing what comes up from that.
Yeah, a lot of food for thought as we begin our day today. So thank you so much, Jackie, for leading us in this practice and very interesting discussion. I think we could spend another half hour on this one. um, so thank you so much, everyone, for joining and for piping in with your comments and questions. It's been a very nice, nourishing, interactive time in the morning. So, and then again, thank you again for Jackie and for leading us in such a wonderful practice. And of course, the reminder is that we will be back here on Thursday at 8:30 with Tar Healy, and at every Tuesday and Thursday at 8:30. So we're so happy to see everyone this morning joining, and thank you again for being with us. And we hope you have a wonderful day. See you
with,
soon.
with some curiosity.
With
Great.
some curiosity, openness and curiosity for today.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Thank you. Bye-bye.